Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're taking a close look at something many experience, but few openly discuss.
hmm
The reality of living with chronic pelvic and vaginal pain.
hmm
We'll be drawing from vagina problems, endometriosis, painful sex, and other taboo topics,
Yeah.
which is a really direct personal account.
Yeah, it's incredibly candid.
Our goal for you in this deep dive is to move beyond just general awareness and really try to understand the multifaceted impact of these conditions.
Right.
The physical battles, the emotional weight, and the social hurdles too.
And what's immediately apparent in this narrative is the sheer vulnerability, isn't it? Sharing such intimate struggles.
Totally.
It gives us a vital window into experiences often kept private. And for you listening, it really highlights the importance of acknowledging these often invisible challenges others might be facing.
Okay, so let's get into a crucial early point. The often really long and frustrating road to getting a diagnosis
Yeah.
and, well, just being believed by medical professionals. You'll read in this account how early pain was just dismissed with that incredibly common phrase, periods are supposed to hurt.
Yeah. That dismissal, you can imagine, it sets such a challenging precedent right from the start.
Mm-hmm.
When those initial experiences are invalidated, it can lead to self-doubt, maybe a reluctance to keep seeking answers.
Yeah, you start questioning yourself.
Exactly. So for you, this really underscores how crucial it is for individuals experiencing persistent pain to advocate for themselves, and not just accept those initial dismissals as the final word.
Absolutely. And then you get this list of diagnoses, vulvodynia, vaginismus, endometriosis, pelvic floor dysfunction.
Right.
Labels that might sound specific, but often they seem to lack clear explanations or, importantly, effective solutions. The author mentions the Q-tip test for vulvodynia.
The Q-tip test, where they apply gentle pressure to the vulvar area.
Right.
While it's sometimes used, it kind of highlights the often, let's say, superficial understanding of these really complex pain conditions.
Yeah, it seems limited.
Very limited. For you listening, seeing this might raise questions about, the limitations of our current diagnostic tools and maybe the need for more comprehensive approaches to understanding pelvic pain. And that term vulvodynia, just to clarify, refers to chronic pain in the vulvar area without a clear identifiable cause.
And it's not just the medical side, is it? There's this layer of shame, particularly around sexual activity.
Mm-hmm.
The author recounts being shamed for being sexually active, and the pain just brushed off with a dismissive, use lube, duh.
Right. And that kind of response, as you can appreciate, it just reveals a profound lack of understanding.
Totally.
This isn't simply some mechanical issue you can solve with lubrication. The pain is often rooted in really complex physiological and neurological factors.
Mm-hmm.
So attributing it to inexperience or just not being prepared enough, it just further isolates the person. For you, this really emphasizes the need for empathy and, frankly, informed understanding when we talk about intimate health concerns.
What really stands out to me is the sheer time it can take to get a diagnosis.
Oh, yeah.
The author self-diagnosed with endometriosis after 5 years, and the average diagnostic delay for endo is often cited as 7 years.
7 years.
Think about that 7 years of living with significant pain without even knowing what is happening.
That diagnostic delay, you can imagine the consequences. It's far-reaching. It not only prolongs the person's suffering, but it can also delay access to appropriate treatment. Endometriosis, which the author experienced, involves tissue like the uterine lining growing outside the uterus, causing inflammation, pain.
Right.
And the emotional toll of that whole period, the feeling of not being believed, maybe even being labeled as, overly sensitive or crazy.
Yeah, that was immense.
Immense. And it can contribute to further mental health challenges for someone going through it.
Let's talk about the pain itself, because the descriptions in the source are incredibly vivid. It's so far beyond typical discomfort. We're talking about debilitating pain linked to endometriosis, described as feeling like your insides are literally ripping apart. This intense pressure, like giving birth, even leading to collapsing and vomiting sometimes.
These descriptions, you hear them, and they just underscore the often underestimated severity of this pain.
Right.
It's crucial for you listening to understand that this isn't just a heightened version of menstrual cramps. It's a completely different level of intensity that profoundly impacts daily functioning.
And it's often relentless, isn't it? It might be constant, but then it flares up even more intensely around menstruation.
Exactly.
Then there's the pain during and after sex, described in such stark terms like shoving a knife dipped in acid
Wow.
or an impossibly large tampon.
Those analogies, gosh, they really bring home the agonizing nature of the pain experienced during intercourse.
Yeah.
For someone experiencing this, it's not just physical discomfort, it creates this significant barrier to intimacy and can understandably lead to anxiety and fear around sexual activity itself.
And what's particularly challenging to grasp, I think, is the pain that can be triggered by arousal itself.
Yes.
The author describes this as intense and widespread. It's
Yeah.
almost like the body is anticipating pain and just clenching up defensively.
Vaginismus, which we mentioned earlier, that involves involuntary muscle contractions around the vagina.
Right, making penetration difficult or painful.
Exactly. And this anticipatory element we're talking about can certainly contribute to that. It really highlights the complex interplay between the physical and the psychological aspects of chronic pain.
How so?
Well, the body can sort of learn to associate certain sensations, like arousal, with pain. This leads to a protective muscular response that, unfortunately, can then further exacerbate the discomfort.
Okay.
So for you, this illustrates how deeply ingrained the pain experience can become. It's not just in the moment.
And the cyclical nature of it all. These pain flares come and go, but there's this constant underlying fear of when the next one will strike.
That persistent state of anxiety and hypervigilance. That constant fear of recurrence, as you can appreciate, places a significant burden on daily life. It affects not only how individuals plan their activities, but also their overall sense of well-being, their ability to relax and feel safe in their own bodies.
And this pain doesn't just stay localized, does it? It seems to impact virtually every aspect of daily life.
No, definitely.
Simple things that, many of us take for granted become huge challenges. Walking, standing, sitting, even choosing what clothes to wear.
Especially anything tight, yeah.
Right. And pelvic floor dysfunction, where the muscles supporting the pelvic organs don't work correctly, that can contribute to these wide-ranging physical limitations.
Yeah, the impact on these really fundamental daily activities illustrates the pervasive nature of chronic pelvic pain. It limits mobility, it reduces independence, and can significantly affect one's overall quality of life in very, very tangible ways. For you listening, this paints a picture of the constant adjustments and limitations someone with these conditions might face every single day.
And then there's the sleep disruption and the constant fatigue.
Ugh, yes.
I mean, imagine trying to function when you're in pain much of the time, and you can't even get a restful night's sleep.
The cycle of pain, sleep disturbance, and fatigue. It's such a common feature of many chronic pain conditions.
It sounds like a vicious circle.
It really is. Lack of sleep can actually worsen pain perception, and pain obviously makes it difficult to sleep, creating this really debilitating feedback loop. For you, this highlights just how interconnected physical and mental well-being are, especially in the context of chronic illness.
It has a massive impact on work life too, right?
Huge.
Missing days, the constant worry about losing your job, having to suddenly leave work because of a pain flare.
Yeah.
The author shares this really raw experience of being on the bathroom floor at work.
That experience on the bathroom floor, you read that, and it's just such a stark reminder of the unpredictable and often uncontrollable nature of these pain flares. It underscores the vulnerability and the significant difficulty of maintaining a professional life while managing a chronic condition like this. For you, it offers a glimpse into the real-world challenges and potential disruptions these conditions can cause.
And the social isolation. That comes through so strongly. How do you even begin to explain this to someone who hasn't experienced it? You want to participate, but your body just won't cooperate.
Social isolation, yeah, it's a significant consequence of living with chronic pain. The difficulty of articulating the often invisible nature of the condition to others.
Works like it might look fine.
Exactly. The unpredictability of symptoms, the limitations it imposes on social activities. It can understandably lead to feelings of loneliness and disconnection.
The author brings up the spoon theory, which I think is such a powerful way to understand the limited energy available when you're living with a chronic illness.
It really is helpful.
For those of you unfamiliar, it's basically a way of quantifying energy levels, where each task takes a certain number of spoons, and once your spoons are gone for the day, you're just done.
Yeah, the spoon theory provides a really valuable framework, as you hear, for understanding this concept of limited energy reserves in chronic illness. It helps explain why seemingly simple tasks can be so incredibly draining, and why individuals with chronic pain often have to make really difficult choices about how to allocate their limited spoons each day.
Now, let's touch on relationships and intimacy, which understandably is a deeply affected area.
Mm-hmm.
The author talks about the challenge of even bringing up these very personal vagina problems with a romantic partner.
Yeah, the intimacy of a romantic relationship, you can imagine, makes discussing these deeply personal and often painful issues particularly challenging.
There must be so much vulnerability there.
Absolutely. There's a real vulnerability involved, and the fear of judgment, misunderstanding, or even rejection can be very, very significant for someone in this situation.
And there's this real fear of rejection, of feeling unlovable because of these conditions. It's just heartbreaking to read about.
Yeah, this fear of being unlovable.
Mm.
It's a common emotional burden for individuals living with chronic illness, unfortunately.
Why do you think that is?
Well, societal norms often place a high value on physical health and the ability to engage in certain activities, right?
Sure.
Which can unfortunately lead to feelings of inadequacy and diminished self-worth when those abilities are compromised by pain.
The difficulty of penetrative sex is a major theme, and the author emphasizes the need to explore alternative forms of intimacy.
Yes, crucially.
It shouldn't just be about one type of sex.
Right.
For you listening, this might prompt you to consider the broader definition of intimacy and connection.
Absolutely. Redefining intimacy and exploring alternative forms of sexual expression are so important for maintaining connection and pleasure in relationships affected by chronic pain. Open communication and a willingness to adapt and explore are really key in these situations.
Sadly, there are negative experiences shared. Too, partners who were unsupportive or even, pressured for sex despite the pain.
Yeah, that's just awful.
It's unacceptable.
Totally. These negative experiences really highlight the critical importance of finding partners who are empathetic, understanding, and truly respectful of the individual's physical limitations and pain levels.
Right.
A lack of support can be incredibly damaging both to the relationship and the individual's overall well-being.
But it's inspiring to read about the author's journey to embracing non-penetrative sex and discovering pleasure through things like vibrators. It shows a real reclaiming of her own sexuality despite the pain.
That journey of self-discovery and reclaiming pleasure, as you hear, is incredibly empowering.
Yeah.
It demonstrates resilience and a refusal to let pain dictate all aspects of one's life, including something as personal and important as sexuality.
And the importance of open communication and finding understanding partners really shines through as a vital element for navigating these challenges.
Oh, absolutely. Open and honest communication, it forms the bedrock of any healthy relationship, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But it becomes particularly vital when navigating the complexities of chronic pain. Finding a partner who is willing to truly listen, to learn, and to adapt together is absolutely essential for building a supportive and fulfilling connection.
The search for solutions is another long and often disheartening road described in the book.
Yeah, definitely.
The author recounts trying so many different treatments, ablation surgery that didn't work, pharmaceuticals, alternative therapies like acupuncture, herbs, CBD, cannabis, pelvic floor, physical therapy, dilators.
Wow.
It's exhausting just listing them, isn't it?
It really is.
For you listening, this illustrates the often trial and error nature of managing chronic pain.
The sheer number of treatments explored, as you hear, really underscores the lack of universally effective solutions and the very individualized nature of chronic pain management.
Yeah.
What might bring relief for one person may not work at all for another, leading to what can feel like an endless and frustrating process of trial and error.
And the emotional roller coaster of hope and disappointment must be just brutal.
Oh, yeah.
Feeling like you finally found something that might offer relief, only to have the pain come roaring back.
This cycle of hope followed by disappointment, you can imagine it can take a significant emotional toll,
For sure.
leading to feelings of frustration, discouragement, even despair sometimes. It's important for you listening to recognize the emotional labor involved in constantly seeking and trying new treatments while living with chronic pain.
Eventually, there seems to be a shift described toward acceptance and self-compassion, rather than solely focusing on this elusive cure. This might be a valuable perspective for anyone dealing with a long-term health challenge, really.
I think so. This shift towards acceptance, as you observe, can be a real turning point. It's not about giving up on finding ways to manage pain, necessarily.
Right.
But rather about finding a way to live a meaningful life alongside chronic pain, prioritizing self-care, emotional well-being, and finding joy in other aspects of life.
The emotional and mental health impact of all of this is just profound.
It really is.
Feelings of shame, embarrassment, guilt, anger, frustration, sadness, and just plain hopelessness come up again and again in the author's account.
Yeah, the emotional burden of chronic pain is often underestimated, I think.
Hmm.
These persistent negative emotions can significantly impact mental health, increasing the risk of anxiety, depression, and other psychological challenges for individuals living with these conditions.
And the mental fatigue. Just constantly managing pain and its effects must be overwhelming.
Absolutely.
It's like having a second full-time job just trying to cope with your own body.
Yeah, the cognitive load of managing chronic pain,
Hmm.
tracking symptoms, medications, appointments, the constant adjustments to daily life, it can indeed lead to significant mental fatigue,
How does that show up?
affecting concentration, memory, overall cognitive function. For you, this highlights the often invisible mental effort involved in living with chronic illness.
There's a real sense of grieving, too, isn't there? Grieving for the life that could have been,
Hmm.
the things that have been missed or just no longer possible because of the pain.
This sense of loss and grief, as you observe, it's a natural and valid response to the limitations imposed by chronic pain.
Right.
Acknowledging and processing those feelings is actually an important part of coping and finding ways to adapt and build a fulfilling life within a new reality.
And then there's the well-meaning but often completely unhelpful advice from others.
Oh, yes.
Stay positive. It could be worse. Suggestions for, unproven remedies. It can feel so invalidating, can't it?
Yeah, while often intended to be supportive, these types of comments can actually minimize the individual's very real experience and contribute to feelings of isolation and being misunderstood. It's so important for friends and family to try to listen with empathy and maybe avoid offering unsolicited or dismissive advice.
The internal conflict of wanting to be social but physically not being able to that must be incredibly isolating.
Hmm. This conflict, as you point out, can lead to significant feelings of guilt and frustration.
Yeah.
Individuals with chronic pain often struggle to reconcile their natural desire for social connection with their very real physical limitations.
And the development of defense mechanisms comes up, like joking about it or maybe pushing people away.
Yeah.
It's described as a way to cope with the pain and the fear of not being truly understood.
And these defense mechanisms, as you observe, they're often developed as a way to protect oneself from further emotional pain or judgment.
Makes sense.
Understanding these behaviors within the context of chronic pain can foster greater empathy and patience from loved ones.
Finally, this book really emphasizes the importance of challenging taboos and advocating for change. These vagina problems need to be talked about openly, don't they?
Absolutely.
For you listening, this underscores the power of shared experience and open dialogue.
Breaking the silence and challenging the stigma surrounding these conditions, as you hear, is just crucial
Why?
for raising broader awareness, fostering greater understanding, and encouraging more open and honest conversations within families, friendships, and importantly, the medical community.
And the need for better understanding and empathy from everyone, friends, family, the medical community, it's paramount for improving the lives of those affected.
Empathy and understanding, as you recognize, are essential for creating a truly supportive environment.
Mm.
This includes actively validating their experiences, believing their pain, and offering both practical and emotional support.
There's also a clear call for more research and funding for conditions like endometriosis,
Yes.
which affects so many people, yet often doesn't seem to receive the attention it deserves.
Increased research funding, as you point out, is absolutely vital for advancing our understanding of the underlying causes, developing more effective diagnostic tools and treatments,
Yeah.
and ultimately improving the lives of those affected on a large scale.
And ultimately, it seems to come down to empowerment through self-advocacy and finding community.
Hmm.
Knowing you're not alone in this struggle can be incredibly powerful.
Connecting with others who share similar experiences, as you hear, can provide invaluable emotional support, practical advice, and a much-needed sense of community. It can significantly reduce feelings of isolation and empower individuals to advocate more effectively for their own needs and well-being.
So, as you've heard in this deep dive into vagina problems, chronic pelvic and vaginal pain conditions have a profound and often invisible impact on individuals' lives.
Hmm.
It affects everything: physical well-being, mental health, relationships, daily functioning. The journey to diagnosis and effective management is frequently long and filled with obstacles, really underscoring the urgent need for greater awareness, understanding, and frankly, advancements in medical care.
And this exploration leaves us with an important consideration for you, the listener. Think about the complexity of experiences that may be hidden beneath the surface in those around you.
Hmm.
How can we all contribute to creating more supportive and understanding spaces for individuals living with chronic pain? And maybe what questions does this exploration raise for you about how we approach health, well-being, and empathy in our own lives and communities?